Evening all, welcome back to the mission board. The most important thing to do at the moment is to make the ship work. We need to then sort out Gleba, and then we need to look at the Aquilo, because I quite like Aquilo, and then obviously Profit. So welcome back. This is Factorio, now in 4K. That's right, managed to work out settings. All computers is settings, I find. If you actually understand how settings work, you're probably going to be like a top crack IT consultant, but there we go. Factorio at the moment is like incredibly good still. I'm still amazed that after what, 3 months, 2 months, something like that, I'm still playing it and I get such a kick out of it as well. I think really what I'm trying to do now is, because I completed the game in terms of getting to the edge of the solar system, so that's done. The ship basically works, but it needs upgrading. So this video is the beginning of that kind of making the ship work. The first attempt to get to the edge of the solar system, I had to turn back because it just went wrong. It didn't work. And mostly because things like railguns, they just run out of ammo, then you have a problem. I find that also the huge rocks, if you target them with things like lasers and rockets and so on, it also is incredibly wasteful on the ammo. So just generally nothing worked from an ammo point of view. Again, settings. It was all in the settings. So with a bit of thought, the redesign of this ship is going to be very much to really push it to something that can go to the shattered planet, start to capture promethium, and really pushing it. So think of it as kind of the end state for the ship. There's a number of things we have to do with the ship. Firstly, rename it. So we're actually going to, you'll see what rename it in a minute. But I think it needs to be, oh yeah, I've already done it. Strangely beige. That's my favourite word, favourite name. I was for many years strangely beige as a character. And why? Just made me laugh. Why am I called CO Pyrex? Well, it just made me laugh one day. I think I was playing Eve. There you go, funny fact. And no, it wasn't actually. Gosh, it was before Eve. Wow, that takes me back. Shows my brain sort of starting to creak into power. I used to play Counter-Strike. And way back in the day when you had to do a dial-up, that I had to like dial in to a Counter-Strike lobby. Like, can you just imagine that? So literally hearing the biam biam thing, literally that's what I did. It was mental. But it was interesting because the game ran perfectly fine. Like I used to do Day of Defeat. That was the Counter-Strike or the Half-Life 2 mod, or Half-Life 1 mod rather. And I was just stood in my uni house one day washing up, and I looked down and I saw a Pyrex dish and it made me giggle. So I just thought, right, I'll be Pyrex. But it's only when I came to Eve, I adopted the title CEO Pyrex because I was obviously CEO of my corp. So I created that character and the rest is history. So fun fact, no one cared about that. You don't care. You're literally saying, why are you telling me this? A load of bibble. I don't care. And I agree with you because it is absolute nonsense. But back to the ship. So what I'm trying to do with the ship is really just re-engineer it. So the problem with the ship started really when I made it a very big platform. We have nuclear power. There's no point having nuclear power anymore. The fusion reactors, or are they fission? Fusion? Post in the comments, no idea. They're a good example of what you can use now to power the whole ship. So all of this you don't need. Now it's good to have this. So I had it as a backup. And then I realised that basically it never got used. Fusion power is so efficient. You put one load of goop, green goop, into it. There is a name, don't know it. And it basically recycles 100% efficiency. So actually you don't lose anything. So a lot of this video is going to be moving things around, trying to kind of prepare the platform, the ship, whatever you want to call it, the slightly beige, to be a bit more efficient. And I think a lot of it comes down to two things. You need a huge amount of weapon production. So for any platform, it needs to have a substantial amount of rockets, railgun ammo, and normal ammo being created. Now, I have seen other YouTubers who actually stick with yellow ammo, the initial beginning ammo. So I might try that, because that'll be interesting, because you can really mass produce that. And when you've got training, science into research done into bullet physical damage, it looks as if that's a viable option. So post in the comments, tell me if I'm talking flim flam jibber jabber wish wash there, because it feels as if actually that might be a better way to do it, because building red ammo, or red ammo, advanced ammo, is it? No idea. It's another step, and it would be nice to replace the red ammo with yellow ammo, but have lots of it. So anyway, that's something we'll look at probably next video. This one really is about stripping back all of the rubbish on the platform that we don't need. So here, for example, we've got our explosive production. It's not perfect, but it will do for now. With things like legendary and epic level chemical plants, they're pretty good. And I think I just need to sort out the cryo plants, the foundries. These are all kind of level 0 still, basic, common, whatever you call them. So they need a bit of work. I need to kind of re-engineer those to be a higher quality level. But overall, I would say the other things like factories and so on, we've got loads of them. But really, I don't need this nuclear power. It's probably time to remove it. But again, like anything, if you've ever done any kind of maintenance on your house or home improvement, I just did a quick sort of cut screen there just to show you kind of streamlining that central channel through the ship. I'm going to keep that. I like that. I think the water production will move down a bit as well, but moving everything with all the wires and everything, it's a bit of a risk, to be honest. And I think, again, as you can see, like I'm making sort of careful cuts, because if that red wire is lost, a lot of the signals that are important to the ship are suddenly gone, and then it'll start mass producing stupid amounts of stuff. So you've got to be quite careful when you do this. And I think the reality is that I was trying to preserve the ship operationally before I kind of cut it to pieces. So you see here, I'm doing it very carefully. That water, for example, is being fed to the explosives. Well, that actually doesn't need to be there, so we'll move that down in just a bit. You can see my weapons, or rather my gauges there, red, yellow and blue. That's showing me steel, carbonite and ice rocks in terms of the quantity on the external belts. So on the external belts, you've got an ammo belt that goes all the way around the ship. You've also got a rock belt, a kind of, whatever you call it, a post grabbed rock thing belt, and that basically is feeding through to the production area, and it uses smart technology. That's right, smart technology, to figure out how much to put on and how much to not. Now, I probably should go a step further and tell through circuitry the grabbing arm thingies to not grab certain rocks. That's to be done. That's on the to-do list. So right now, I've flown all the way to the edge of the solar system and back. That external belt has never filled up, ever. That's incredible to me. Well, it kind of has, but it's being processed at a substantial speed. And we have these vacuum or evacuation areas here. So at the bottom of the ship, we're dumping carbon, we're dumping iron on the other side. The top of the ship, we're dumping copper, and sulfur is to the left. So all of these things are things that will accumulate, and basically by having these kind of wiring set up so that it knows when to dump certain amounts, so over 1,000 amount of iron, dump the iron, it works quite well. So even with a full belt, it doesn't really stay full for long, because it's just been processed so quickly and pushed out the ship. I don't know if that's the right way to do it. Post in the comments, because I'd be curious to know how you've done it. But to me, it always made sense to have a full complement of, in this case, carbon and iron ready, rather than dumping it before it goes into the ship. Because you could just dump the iron as you smelt it, as you create it, or rather as you kind of, before you even smelt it as well. So loads of options. And I think this has worked quite well, but I'm happy to look at changing this, because certain things like ice, for example, we don't try to keep too much ice on the belt. We keep that kind of balanced and pushed out the ship as well. Same with calcite. So this has been a huge amount of, months of tweaking and getting it to a point where it kind of works. Now, you'll notice there's a bit of a mistake here. Those of you who have noticed it, you've probably already written a comment, and it will probably start with "lol Pyrex, you're a," insert your favorite expletive here. I didn't need to put railguns on the sides. Well, actually, I did, because that was my biggest issue, is the ship, while it's collecting promethium, should never really technically stop, okay? I didn't know that. I didn't really figure that out. I thought you got to the edge of the solar system and then maybe created a platform like a space station. No, you don't do that. You can leave these ships here, though. So that is something to consider. So this is why I put railgun coverage all the way around the ship. There's only one, let's say, weak spot, which is the very bottom of the ship, which is to the engines. If a rock, if a huge rock comes that way, well, I'm going to lose my legendary engines. But I don't mind. That's a risk I'm willing to take. But the reality of it is that you're probably not going to leave this ship stood still anywhere. So I don't really think. I mean, again, hindsight is 2020. But my understanding is they probably didn't need to use railguns all the way around the ship. You could just probably get away with pointing them forward. Post the comments, let me know if I have that wrong. And the reason I did it is because, again, all of my turrets were kind of shooting huge rocks, wasting loads of ammo. I think if I just set them properly, again, we're back to settings, then you can set it so that it won't shoot huge rocks with things like the rocket launchers and the turrets and the laser turrets, the gun turrets. So, again, it's a learning point. Like, I kind of thought, well, I probably should destroy everything in the vicinity, and that just means it's safe. But the reality is, when the ship's moving forward, you kind of maneuver past the huge rocks. But there we go. It took me an awful long time to figure that out. I would say it took me an even longer time to actually work out how to put railguns on every single angle to the base. Maybe one day this base will just, or this platform, slightly beige, strangely beige, will just sit at the edge of the solar system. I think that might be its final resting place. And I think probably even we'll start to do things like we'll expand it. So imagine this, at the edge of the solar system is this kind of perpetually expanding platform that no longer moves, but it has complete coverage, self-sufficient. It will be a bastion of engineerdom at the very edge of the solar system. That's my kind of goal with this. So there was a reason for it. I did like the idea of leaving something there, but the reason you'd leave it there is utterly pointless because there's not really much you'd be doing with it. Now, when it comes to Prometheum science or deep space science, I think they call that, you can just send a ship out there with a huge amount of belts to kind of capture Prometheum rocks and then just come back to Nalvis and make it. So that way you don't have to cart biter eggs out into deep space because there's obviously a risk they hatch and they attack the platform. So there's logic in the madness, but we'll see. So we've moved the fission reactor down. Fusion, who knows? And we've now started to, I think, critically appraise what else needs to move. Now, I think the water can probably stay there, actually. I think we need to definitely move the explosives down. So that's one of the key things that I think's in the way. I do want to try and then move almost every single gun production, so railgun, missiles, also start making area of effect missiles, because we only do the basic ones at the moment. And I think moving them down to here means we get much more production, because the reality is we need to build hundreds of them. We need a constant supply. So think about, you're flying through towards a shattered planet. It has to be producing more ammo than you're using, but you're using ammo continuously. So just think of the logistical challenge there, because you then have to be making all the resources and channeling them correctly to these factories. The factories need to have power. Well, power is not so difficult. I'm not too worried about that, because these fission reactors, and we'll probably add to this one. This is just to get us going. The reactors, I think, are good, but the amount of resources you've got to push to them, I think, starts to become a challenge, and that's really it. And you then start to factor in things like, I've got 3 ammo types, potentially maybe 4 now, that I would have to then feed onto a belt with only 2 sides. So you then start to have to think of sushi belts, or maybe we do a second, ammo belt around the ship. So loads to consider, but I mean, it's possible. I think at the start of it, when I first saw it, I was like, there's no way I can even figure that out. As I've played the game for a while now, I think actually, yeah, this is easy. This is not too challenging. And it's really just a case of having a good quality design with the right equipment. I think legendary and epic is pretty important now. I think the foundries are too slow. So that's the first thing we're going to have to do with this build, is sort out the foundries. The issue I have with foundries is they are really difficult to get to legendary status. I've been using, if you recall, if you've seen my work before, you'll have seen those kind of self-automating kind of destruction loops. They kind of work, but in this case, I'm not entirely sure they've been very successful. So I think there's a little bit of work there to figure out how best to do that. But as it stands at the moment, I think the best thing to do is to really just start to build the foundation level up. So how much iron and copper are we producing, and then trace it all the way back to, okay, the grabbers, all the way through to then the production. So actually then, grabbing rocks, putting them in the crushers. Are we producing enough to sustain a full amount of ammo production? And there's a number. There's going to be a golden number depending on how many factories we have and so on. And I think all of that is yet to be worked out. But that's how serious business this game is. Because if you don't have the right design, your ship is dead. And that's why it's really cool, because I like the idea of trying to make something that you can click that button to say, go to the shattered planet, or maybe not the shattered planet, because that's a bit more complicated, but you could go to the edge of the universe, edge of the solar system, and not have to watch it. You don't have to keep an eye on it. That's what I want to get to, because I've done that for every other planet, even Aquilo, that easy. But I'd like to do it now to the edge of the solar system. I think I've got that with this ship, but it would be nice to then have something that can go beyond that to the shattered planet, even though not necessarily reaching the shattered planet, if that makes sense. It's 4 million kilometers, which it doesn't make any sense because it should be more than that. But anyway, you see what I'm doing here. So starting to place bookmarks, thinking where some of the factories will go. It's very sloppily placed, but again, the idea being is that I want to try and segment the ship and then ultimately have it repeatable, printable. And there we go. So there we go. It's great. Lovely progress. I'm really enjoying this part of the game. And I think really now I just cannot wait to hit my mission board. Hope you enjoyed that. We'll see you next time.